Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella Herrera. How's it going, Maricella? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm currently staring at a gallon jar of pepperoncini and wondering where the hell am I going to store that in my apartment?
A gallon jar? That's impressive. What do you, is this a weird question? What are you going to do with that?
I still don't know. It was one of those. So I haven't been wanting to go grocery shopping, so I did my groceries on one of these, it's like restaurant providers who are now selling to just normal humans since restaurants are closed. And so a lot of their stuff was just really big. And I saw that and I was like, oh, yum. And now I realize what a gallon of pepperoncini peppers looks like. And it's a lot.
Well, salads, foods, I don't know. You'll figure. There's lots of options. You can put it on the Ellevate recipe Slack channel, and I'm sure you'll get.
I will.
different ideas. But I love, so it's really inspiring to me to see how some businesses are pivoting during this time. Of course, there's been a lot of commentary about food waste, whereas supply chains were sending food typically to restaurants or schools, and now a lot of it's going to waste because they don't have the structure in place to redirect it to individual consumers or to grocery stores and other food banks. So it's exciting to hear your experience about that, and to also, our guest today, Sara Rodell, has founded a platform called Loop and Tie. And on one hand, it's really about how brands and sporting teams and other companies can engage and reward their customers. But the flip side of that is they're engaging and rewarding them with a curated list of goods and products that are sourced from local businesses, from small businesses. And during this time, so many small businesses are just being really affected and affected in so many ways. They, don't have the resources, they don't have the operating capital. They oftentimes aren't getting the support to keep their businesses afloat during this time. So it's great to have Sara on the podcast so we can talk about, just how we can better support small businesses. It's a privilege for many of us to be able to continue doing the work that we want to do, to be able to be home, to have these conversations. And I wanted to shed light on that each of us who has that privilege and has that opportunity to pay it forward, to support a small business, to support a local business, to help solve some of the inequalities and injustices that are happening during this time. I encourage everyone to take that action and to be very intentional about it. So, really happy to hear about your experience, Maricella.
Yeah, I've been really trying to focus on either buying everything I can from local small businesses or businesses like this one. This one is a bigger place, but it sources from most of the local farms, a lot of it. So there are a lot of ways that you can help support small businesses, help support others that aren't as lucky or privileged to be able to, maintain their work or their businesses afloat if they don't get support continuously. So anyway.
On that topic of supporting others, we've been doing some really good things at Ellevate, and I'd be remiss if I didn't call that out. If you are looking to tap into our community, if you're looking for advice, if you're looking for insights, we've created a whole number of virtual events accessible to anyone where you can connect with peers, talk about careers, talk about business, tap into expertise within our community, including local meetups where we're continuing to cultivate and build local community during this time. So I encourage you to check that out. We also have a Squads program coming up. Squads is our online peer mentoring program. It's small groups of women who meet for half an hour a week via video chat. We've had thousands of women go through this program and have seen remarkable results around confidence and innovation and support. And we have created a new cohort really focused on leading during times of uncertainty. So if that's leading in your community, leading a team, leading a company, how do we band together to ensure that during this time, women and our progress in the workplace and beyond is not going backwards, but continuing to move forward and continuing to move forward based on that support, shared knowledge, and insights that we all need to lead during this time and to navigate these times. So I wanted to call that out because I'm really excited about what the Ellevate team has done to really direct all of our energy and resources towards being the greatest help for our community who's in need. Well, let's get to my conversation with Sara. Sara, thanks so much for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast. It's great to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we met through Rachel Sklar, and she is a master connector.
She is.
And she's also a huge supporter of other women, which is amazing. So how, this is kind of a weird question, but, why has that been important to you, just having people in your corner that are advocating for you and supporting you?
So as I look at just some of the things that I find really special and a big goal of mine just on the entrepreneurial journey is how we can impact and elevate other leaders. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I view any hand up that I've had with so much gratitude and also with a pay it forward mindset. And I could not have gotten started without people just stopping and paying attention to somebody who didn't have qualifications at the time, but who had a really great idea. Rachel is certainly one of those people, as is the list in general, which is where I got a chance to meet her. And it's very much a part of my ethos as I think about my own growth and what I want to contribute going forward.
How do you pay it forward?
Time. Right now, my most precious commodity is time. And so I'm also, I think that most people probably have that same mentality, but it's also where I think there is the most impact. Money is great too, but I think for me, time is where I think I can impact people the most because it is in the space of time that we're able to really think about collaboration and co-creation. And when I think about impact, the biggest impact comes from co-creation, and money is a resource that is a part of that, but it's really the ideas and the space that we give them to impact change.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your background. What are you doing today and how did you get there?
Sure. So my professional background started in finance. I used to work on the trading floor and then eventually the institutional sales team at UBS. So a very finance-driven job that is a bit different than what I have now. And I got into that space because I was really interested in how people think about purchase decisions. And that was sort of the mental space that led me there.
There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into, you went into that research.
Yeah. Well, I in college, I studied economics and anthropology. Okay. So there's that through line there of like, how do we make our purchase decisions? Mm-hmm. And, that was the content that I think really drew me into that space. There was also my best friend who said, we should move to New York. It'll be fun.
Where did you move from?
Apply to a bunch of jobs. And that was the first job that I got. I moved from UVA. I went to school in Virginia. I'm from Austin, Texas originally. But I moved up here and that was the job that I got. And it very fortuitously led me into the space I'm at now because one of the purchase decisions I found very odd and inefficient was gifting. Mm-hmm. And so had a very specific example where I volunteered to handle the gifts that we were doing for our clients one year. And I was struck by how broadly inefficient the process was of figuring out what to buy someone. We had clients who were kosher, clients who didn't drink, and you can very easily send someone the wrong thing and have it, it would have been better to have not sent something at all. And I was also struck by how narrow the swim lane is of what is socially appropriate to give as a gift. We sort of generally agree that food and beverage isn't weird to give other people. And so we buy things that are riffs on food and beverage, and that ends up creating a ton of waste. So the other piece that I didn't like that I saw was how much product is purchased as a formality rather than being useful. And when people are buying the same, pecan pie or tin of cookies or popcorn, that's not really getting consumed. And that really bothered me. And so as I took a step back, I said, I think there's this massive opportunity to connect the buying power of companies with the magic and relevance of smaller brands who make things that are well outside of that swim lane of food and beverage items that are really great gifts, but social rules make it weird for us to buy them. And also discoverability is hard. So I spent a lot of time thinking about just what do we mean when we give gifts? Why do we do it? And then how can we make that process actually serve that intention and do it in a way that mapped to my ethos as I think about, the impact I want to have in the world. I don't want to make just another thing that is bought and empty. I saw the opportunity to really impact waste reduction, to really serve the intention in a way that felt good. I was sending gifts and I didn't get to hear back from people, and I wanted to have this moment of exchange. And I think gifting is this just gorgeous human interaction that is so persistent over all of time. Every culture has a gifting story and a gifting practice, and it's so core to who we are, and it's such a key way of connection. And I think there's so much that we still yet to do in how that can be more easily integrated into daily life.
What's the best gift you've ever been given?
I get that question all the time, and it's funny. I have a few gifts that always bounce around in my head. I'm like, what's my favorite today? I think today my favorite is this necklace that I was given by both my mom and my dad when I turned 16, and I had the activity with them of like going and picking out the gem and the setting, and it was this whole ceremony moment of saying this is an adult moment. And if I think about why it's important, it's really, I think the best gifts commemorate a moment in time so that we have just sort of, they're a portal in a way. They kind of take us back into that moment, and it's a symbol, it's all of that. When I wear this necklace and when I touch it, I think about the fact that my mom and dad thought of me, and this is a way to commemorate that moment in time.
Yeah, that's so true. As you're talking, I was thinking my husband made me a necklace one year. He had taken shells from the beach and put them in now I'm touching my necklace, but had put them in a setting. And so it was really sweet because it was, if I'm being honest, not the most attractive necklace. I mean, certainly very unique, but it was a memory. It reminded me of times, on the beach or with the family, or the kids picked out the shells in Montauk, and it just had such depth to it that wasn't just a piece of jewelry, and it's like you're saying, those memories, there's something that resonates with you. Another quick story, because as you were talking about the waste, it's funny. So my dad is a dentist, so small business owner, and he gets a lot of food baskets around the holidays every year. I mean, ever since I can remember, that's what, his different vendors and some patients and other people would give him these big, Pepperidge Farm or something, Harry and David, baskets. And so for the next year, anytime there was a dinner party or anytime people were over, they're going in the cabinet, pulling out some random cracker, some random jam, something that's been sitting there because...
Concerning how it never expires.
Because it's just not something that, you get this box with all this stuff in it, and then it just kind of sits there, and you hope you put it out and hope someone eats it. And I mean, that doesn't feel personal to you, right? I mean, the intent of a gift, you're like, thanks. But as you're talking about your favorite gift, it's about something that felt personal and authentic, and I want to hear more about Loop and Tie, because you are solving that problem of how do you give gifts to many people but it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. It doesn't have to feel something that is, arbitrary or useless. It's something that can be personal.
Yeah.
How did you solve for that?
So it's so interesting how these topics that we talk about are, and by these topics, I mean personalization and creating memory and that pause, that moment that takes us out of our everyday, are really hard to create on an individual level with people. They are even harder and for many impossible at scale. And so this problem was interesting for me to explore in this way where it's felt in this very extreme method. And I really wanted to focus on the corporate environment because we have such an opportunity within the corporate sphere to set a new pace for how what human interaction that is essential looks like. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I'm interested in I'm starting really high level to sort of answer your question, because I think in the corporate space, we have such an opportunity to be impactful. And so much of that can start with our client relationships and our customer relationships, mm-hmm. that we stop viewing them as separate. Mm-hmm. People just want to be treated as humans. Mm-hmm. And I think we are increasingly seeing the way that people make purchase decisions to associate with companies that treat them as individuals and connect with them on a very human level, where we use this word like, consumer and company, but it's just, we're all the same. We just wear different hats, yeah. Right? And so when I was looking at this gifting problem on a very product level, what it ended up doing is rolling up to me of saying, how as a person do I want to be treated by, the entity that I'm buying things from? And so what I really try to solve for is, how do you create an individualized experience at scale? And it happens to be through gifting. Mm-hmm. And we're at this, I think, really interesting moment culturally where we're expecting, as individuals, we are expecting we're expecting different things from companies that we deal with. We want to mm-hmm. know what they stand for, what their sustainability policies mm-hmm. are. If we don't agree with the way we've seen them vote or treat their employees, we as, the buying public are raising our hands in ways that we've never done in the past. And it's creating a level of accountability that I think is really powerful. And it's also creating a new set of expectations for how companies are then spending their money and being treated, where it's moving away from transactional and deeper into this space of relationship. And when I look at what we're building with Loop and Tie, I really look at how do I contribute to a context that I think is really powerful, which is the space of more human interaction, and how do I create a tool that is a facilitator of that? And mm-hmm. for me, that's gifting, and gifting falls out of that. And so something that we've thought about and continue to think about is, how does that gift moment create the exchange, like I described with my family, that commemorates a moment in time that feels like this company actually understands me. I may know that I'm a part of a mass interaction, but I don't care because I've been treated as an individual. Mm-hmm. And so the way we've designed through that is through this very simple but elegant idea of sending choice. Because as a company, when you're dealing with thousands of people at once, can be really hard to do one specific thing for each person, mm-hmm. in many ways impossible. But when you send choice, and those choices are thoughtfully curated, you're doing two key things. You are saying to the person that you're sending choice to, this is opt-in. Do you want this thing in your life? Mm-hmm. I'm not just blind sending you a gift basket, right?
Yeah.
And if this is a thing you want in your life, and you get to choose what of the items you want, and they're all thoughtfully curated, made from small businesses, could be a donation to a charity, things that feel good to be associated with. What is the thing you want in your life? And when you opt into having that thing in your life, that's what's creating that brand moment. Mm-hmm. Because, one of the things that that is a top selection for us are these gorgeous copper products made from recycled copper in Oaxaca. They're finished in Austin. It's this brand called Sortoto Copper that's just stunning. And I have some of their products in my home. Whenever I take them off the shelf and I make a cocktail and I serve it to somebody, I know where that came from, mm-hmm. right? And it's not branded, but that doesn't matter. Like, it's that association with the giver that happens. And so I'm really excited to see the different expressions of how, if we look at the way companies are shifting their mindset around customer interactions to being relational instead of transactional, what that ends up doing for who we can support.
Yeah, I love it. And I mentioned to you earlier, so Rachel gifted me on Loop and Tie, and I got these really amazing beeswax wrappers, it replaces saran wrap. And it was something I'd wanted. Like, I'd always thought, I'd kind of been thinking about, but I didn't actually take the action. And then I was going through, and there were so many amazing things on there. And it was everything from, candles, and I think you have air plants too, right? And because I was like, oh, I kind of want an air plant. I was having a hard time to decide, but it really, it felt exciting. Like, it was something for me. It was something I felt joy in that I really wanted. I think you've created something really special.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about forming a company, because when I speak with potential entrepreneurs, it's always like they feel like they have to have it 100% right before then they take the plunge to do it. And then it's always like pushing off that timeline too. Like, maybe I'll like give notice next month, or maybe next month, or, and there, because there's some hesitation, there's some fear, it's a risk. And we find a lot of reasons to hold off on that risk. And I want to know your story. What did that look like for you?
I'm very grateful for all that I didn't know in many ways, in terms of assessing the risk that I was taking. It took me about 2 years of just hemming and hawing on different ways to approach a problem I saw with just the gifting behavior. I started with a different concept. It was not Loop and Tie. It was something that was more consumer focused. And, I was 24. And so I was just having fun with this idea of wanting to create a technology. I had no idea anything about the tech industry or even the vocabulary to use when talking about an idea that I had. But what pushed me from just the time I would spend on weekends thinking about business plans to actually doing this was this deep desire to feel my own power in a way where at the job that I had, I knew what I needed to do to get by. And I also knew that it wasn't a full use of my capacity. And I felt this need to see what I was made of by testing myself. And I'm grateful that the way I perceived the risk at the time was actually not very big. It was just, oh, I'll try this, and then I can always come back to do this. And I can, I just didn't view it as big of a jumping off point as I now realize that it was. And I also had, I was fortunate to realize that I probably was going to want to do something different for 2 years. And so I had saved money. And I didn't feel like it was as much of a financial risk as I then realized it was. I am not still, not earning what I probably would have been earning from a salary perspective at the bank. But gosh, I learned that getting paid in money is just only one small part of how you can get paid.
So true. So true.
Which has rung really true over the years. And I think for me, it's the same thing with painting. The hardest thing that I can find personally is just when you have a blank canvas, like, which part do you start at? But once you have a mark on there, then you're painting already, and it's just going. And so taking that leap, thrilling, but also just needs to be done.
Yeah, let's do it. So Loop and Tie is backed by the 49ers and Salesforce Ventures, and also used by a variety of teams in the NFL, MLB, NHL. You will be inundated with questions after this podcast airs for how you did that. So could you share the wonder here? I mean, I know that's, every entrepreneur's dream is, one, the great backers, but then also the great partners. And you talk a lot about that power of relationships and building and cultivating it through the power of gifting. And so clearly that is resonating here. How did you make that happen?
Yeah. So one of the things that I realized when we first started selling our solution, our first industry was residential property management. We were being used for high-end apartments for move-in and lease renewal gifts for their residents, which is a really lovely business, but it is challenging if you're trying to expand outside of that industry to reference some of the companies because they're not broadly recognizable. And so the goal with sports was I can get an industry that has names and brands that are broadly recognizable that are going to then unblock me from scaling. But the hardest part is getting the first one, right? Mm-hmm. And so the way I broke into that industry was through a pitch competition, which was actually the way that I was able to first connect with Salesforce too, and was able to win a pitch competition with the New York Jets, which funny enough didn't end up being our first sports client. Okay. But someone there introduced me to someone at the 49ers, and the 49ers are just this wonderful organization that takes a very tech-forward approach to how they interact with their fans. Mm-hmm. And they saw it, and they said, we want to use this, and we don't care that anyone else is doing it. This is, that's the thing that makes this really exciting. Mm-hmm. And as an entrepreneur, you always want to find that the customer that makes decisions that way. Because most customers, it's funny, someone at the 49ers told me the thing about our industry is teams may have a hard time being first, but no one wants to be third. And so finding that advocate who mm-hmm. sees that and embraces it is a really big deal. And for an industry like sports, something else that's really unique is they don't compete with each other. So they readily share best practices. Nobody is competing. The 49ers don't want to not share information with the Falcons because they're competing for fans, right? Yeah. It's just a different dynamic, which made it a really healthy industry for us to grow in. And a lot of the people that work across different teams move often. And so also readily share ideas. So us getting the 49ers was really impactful from a broad credentialing standpoint, but also the first time that we sold our platform as a service without product. So the way Loop and Tie works is you can choose to send a collection of gifts that we have curated, or you can use the platform to create collections of, in this case, gear and fan experiences to send to your fans. And so it was a way to, in a large, in public fashion, validate our technology by itself. Yeah. And because the 49ers' first campaign was to send to 20,000 people, which was also largely stressful because you can test that all you want. But, it's just, we knew the tech was going to work. We're like, what is the thing that maybe we haven't thought of? But it worked. It worked really well. We got a great base of advocacy there, and we were able to spread.
Absolutely. Oh, this is amazing. All right, so I want to ask you a couple of questions for our lightning round.
Sure.
And you can answer in one sentence or less.
Okay.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Favorite day of the week?
Sunday.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Dream dinner guest?
Einstein.
Your pet peeve?
When people don't look at my calendar, which is open when they schedule.
Yes.
It's a very specific one. My team knows better.
Your Monday morning staple?
Coffee.
Your favorite recent read?
The Overstory. It is so magical. Everyone has to read it.
What is it?
Oh my God. It's way more than one sentence.
I picked up my phone so I could
well,
add
I'm
it to my wish
person
list.
That thinks that it won the Pulitzer. But it's this gorgeous story that it's fiction, but it touches on more human truths through discussing trees and just the nature of forests, and it's so good. Just read it.
Okay, Overstory. I just pulled it up. All right. I'm like addicted to reading, so I'm
excited for you because it's so good.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. Okay. Top self-care practice?
Meditation.
Love it. And what is one final thought you want to leave with our listeners?
Something I've been spending time thinking about lately is what I cannot do. And as I have gone through that exercise, I realize I have these funny narratives about things that I have to do every day that is completely untrue. Mm-hmm. And one of the big ones that I've realized just that slowly became a part of the things I do during my day is a mindless opening and scrolling of Instagram when I'm just, waiting for the subway, whatever. And I cannot do that. And it feels so good to sit there and not do anything. Yeah. And it's been an invitation for me to consider what other things that I either passively or actively do and whether or not they serve me. And it is so fun to see what you can cut out. So see what you can cut out.
All right. Well, Sara, this is lovely. It was so nice to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I love being here. So I appreciate all of your lovely questions.
Absolutely. All right. Everyone check out Loop and Tie. Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes. Give us 5 stars and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.